The Lowest Pentacle Chapter 20, The Magician. The family crammed into the elevator, and she couldn't wait to see what her bedroom looked like. When Bruno opened the door, she frowned when she saw two beds. They were going to be sharing the room with her cousin Rodrigo. It was more economic that way. The first unit was made of wood while the beds were white, and there was a big screen TV and a telephone. And Carina looked at the menu, and she noted that the kitchen was open 24/7. The standing shower was made of a warm, rosy marble, and everything looked and smelled fresh and clean. She parted the curtains to look out the window, and she was happy to see that she had a view of the ocean, and her happiness was short-lived when her eyes fell upon the beds again. Rodrigo snored, and she didn't want to share a bedroom with her cousin. "I know that look, cousin," said Rodrigo, smiling coyly. "The moment you want to get busy, just give me a sign and I will get out of your hair." "That won't be necessary," said Bruno. "Carina's an Aquarius, so our nightly activities will more likely take place in the bathroom or in the pool area." "Please don't share our intimate details with my cousin," said Carina, pouting. "My apologies," said Bruno, bowing sullenly, and Carina didn't know if he was mocking her or being sincere. "Come now, Carina, we are all adults now, and it is not as if he has seen or done anything that I haven't," joked Rodrigo. "I am going to kill you," yelled Carina, chasing after her cousin with a pillow. And she bashed his head, and Rodrigo grabbed his own pillow to arm himself, and cousins got into a pillow fight. And Bruno fancied that he should interfere, however he found the proceedings amusing, and it is not as if he could do any real harm with a pillow, so he decided to let them fight. Rodrigo had height, but Carina had stamina, and after delivering a flurry of rapid pillow strikes, Rodrigo fell to the floor. All right, I was kidding, laughed Rodrigo after surrendering. And based on the way Rodrigo laughed, Bruno had his doubts, and some of the greatest truths are spoken in jest. And Bruno fancied that Carina may have made it with her first cousin at some point or another. And social occurrences were not uncommon in small town, and in the small town that Bruno once called home, and despite such marriages being illegal, Bruno knew a handful of first cousins that cohabited and even had children. Heck, Patricia's parents were first cousins. And Bruno grew saddened when he remembered his little inbred sweetheart, Patricia. And why did he have to run into the woman in the cemetery of all places? And why had she chased after him? And what did she want to say? And what did she want from him? Money, possibly, or maybe legal advice. And perhaps she was regretting letting him go because of his weight. And if she didn't want him when he was fat, he wasn't going to date her now that he was hot. He still had his pride, and in order to stop thinking about Patricia, he looked for something to occupy his mind, and his first instinct was to play chess, but then he remembered that he didn't have a worthy opponent, and he changed into his bathing suit to go for a swim, and the couples grabbed a towel before heading out. And Bruno whistled when he saw the impressive pool, and it was as big as it was deep, and the floor that actually had a bottom had an interesting spiral tile pattern. Carina entered through the shadows, and she was relieved that the water was lukewarm. The pool was climatized. Due to its size, the heater wasn't strong enough to make the water genuinely warm. Still, the temperature was just enough to allow night swimming. Bruno started to free flow while looking at the moon, and Carina looked up at the night sky, and she was delighted to see many stars, and it seemed to her that the stars shone brighter in Cartagena. And she narrowed her eyes as she began to focus on something flying overhead. At first she thought she was seeing a bird, but when it flew lower to drink water, Carina realized it was a bat. "Jesucristo!" yelled Carina before diving underwater, and she swam out of the shallows into the deeper water, and she eventually caught up to Bruno. He asked, smiling benevolently, "Are you in the mood already?" "I didn't come for that. Look, said Carina, pointing at the bats drinking pool water. "Now that is something you don't see every day. Get the camera, let's get a photo," said Bruno. And he added, "Don't forget to use the flash." "I don't want to anger the bats," said Carina, trembling. "You'll be fine," joked Bruno. "If you want a bad photo, then you take it," said Carina before punching the water. "All right, then I will take that photo," said Bruno before swimming to the edge. He pushed himself out of the water, and he picked up the camera, and he lowered himself into a crawl, and little by little he got closer to the bats that were drinking water in the shallows. And he zoomed in before taking the first photo. It came out blurry, even with a flash. and you could barely make out the silhouettes of the little creatures. He needed to get a little closer. Bruno, this is stupid. Come back. You're gonna get rabies, ordered Carina. Quiet, you're making me nervous, whispered Bruno. And he inched a little closer, and he took a new photo. Now you could tell that you were looking at bats. However, he fancied that he could take an even better photo. And before getting carried away, Carina walked up to him and she took the camera away. Bruno sat up and he said, "Aw, you're no fun." Bruno sprang from the floor, and the nighttime swing had been ruined by the bats. And when they got to their bedroom, they heard Rodrigo busy with one of the maids. "Huh, what a bother," said Carina before returning to entering the bathroom. And Bruno entered within as well to do his business, and with nothing better to do, he made polite conversation, and he asked, "Do you think Rodrigo paid the wench?" "That isn't his style," said Carina, turning on the shower, "and he probably went out to the woman and he asked if she wanted to sleep with him, and the woman said yes. She will probably want money after the act," guessed Bruno. "We will see, or will we not? I'd rather not see," said Carina, washing her hair, and she added, "You see, Bruno, this is why we needed our own room." "A lot of folks are sharing rooms in order to make this vacation possible," said Bruno. "And instead of focusing on the negatives, why don't you try to live a little? It is difficult to live with your stinking up the entire bathroom," joked Carina. "You also smell like roses either, Carina, but you never hear me complaining about your odors," said Bruno, dropping a load in his mask. "Let's not start an argument," said Carina. "It isn't my intention to argue, but I will not allow you to walk over me," said Bruno, raising his voice. "Walk over you? All I did was make a mere observation," said Carina, pouting. Bruno opened his mouth to say more, but he chose to remain silent. At that moment, Carina was talking like Rebecca, and once again he was overcome by the urge to break up with Carina. And the only reason why he didn't go do so that night was because he had paid a lot of money to go on vacation with the wench, and he was going to enjoy this family vacation, and he wasn't going to allow Carina to spoil his happiness. Carina finished her shower and she went to the bedroom, and she was relieved to see that the maid was gone. And Bruno by now had finished his business, but he wanted to delay his shower for as long as possible. And the longer he took to get ready for bed, the more he could avoid breathing the same air as Carina. You are arguing scare Agustina away," said Rodrigo. "Good riddance." "I see," said Carina, and she added, "Bruno and I wanted to get busy, so if you don't mind, make yourself sparse for at least an hour or two." Carina fancied that Bruno's moodiness might get cured with a bit of rat housing, and Bruno finished his shower, and Rodrigo left the bedchambers to give the lovebird some privacy. And his sad eyes watched Rodrigo depart as he silently pleaded not to be left alone with Carina. And in the end, he slept with Carina while he meditated on the pros and cons of ending his relationship. And Carina's last demon was far too entertained to notice that her boyfriend's mind was elsewhere. And their work had concluded 2 hours past midnight, and Bruno texted Rodrigo to inform him that the coast was clear. And his friends slithered back into the room. "Angustina came back," whispered Rodrigo. "Details," insisted Bruno, and he knew that Rodrigo delighted in sharing his romantic exploits. Carina pouted when she heard Rodrigo whispering to her boyfriend all the sordid details about his night with Angustia. Carina inched ever closer in order to eavesdrop, and the conversation dropped altogether when the men remembered that Carina was still there. And Bruno showered off Carina's cootie before changing into a clean pajama, and he pretended to fall asleep, and after an hour, everyone was snoring in the bedroom. And he slowly walked towards the balcony, and he opened the door, and he sat outside with his cell phone, and he texted Carlos. "Are you awake?" "Yes," said Carlos. "I need your advice," said Bruno, and he hunched in a corner to mask his voice as much as possible. "What is eating you up?" asked Carlos. "I am thinking of leaving Carina, and as someone who has been married for 10 years, you must have been possessed a few times with the desire to throw it all away. What made you stay?" asked Bruno. "Love," said Carlos. Bruno laughed bitterly before saying, "If you don't want to help me, just say so." "But the answer is love. If you love someone, you forgive everything," said Carlos. "What you are describing isn't love. It is called toxic codependency," said Bruno, remembering how his psychologist described the relationship he used to have with Patricia. I love the life we have, said Carlos, trying to put it in terms that he thought that Bruno could understand. I love that we take the children together to school. I love planning a little family vacation. I love the breakfast she cooks for me. I can stand here all night describing all the little things I love about the life I share with my wife. However, the simplest way to describe what keeps us together is the word love. Whatever it is that Carina did, surely it isn't worth throwing everything away. And do you really think you're going to find someone better than Carina? No, I suppose not, said Bruno. Why do you want to leave Carina? Asked Carlos. Did she cheat on you? No, said Bruno, and even if she did, I wouldn't care. You don't know that until it happens, said Carlos. Bruno returned to the bedroom after Carlos succeeded in causing him to put up with Carina for a little longer. He lay down on his side of the bed and he sighed wearily while he thought of his dead grandmother. And after she died, his happiness died with her, and things got a little better when he started dating Patricia, but alas, those 2 years of bliss only made the breakup far more painful. And as he was asleep, Bruno fancied that Carina's little abuses were a good thing. Alright, that's the end of that chapter.